The center position in basketball can truly make the difference between a good team and a bad one, and for majority of NBA history, the game was ruled by these 7-footers. So today, I'm going to be giving my list for the top 10 greatest centers in NBA history. At number 10, I've got Patrick Ewing. Patrick Ewing was one of the best centers throughout the 90s, playing with the New York Knicks. He was an amazing defender and inside scorer, but unfortunately for him, he was another player from the 90s that had his prime ruined by a prime Michael Jordan in the Chicago Bulls. He never won a championship in his career, but the accolades and achievements that he had really made up for it. He ranks 7th in blocks all time, and he made 7 All-NBA teams, 11 All-Star games, and 3 All-Defensive Team selections. For how amazing he was defensively and how long he was a great player for, he deserves to be on the list, but his lack of postseason success definitely sets him back. At number 9, I've got George Mikan. One of the first real superstars in the NBA, Mikan was in his prime throughout the 50s and accomplished a lot. He won 5 championships, 6 All-NBA first team selections, and made 4 All-Star games. I can see why somebody would put Patrick Ewing over Mikan, mainly because Mikan played in such a weaker era, but Mikan's accolades are a lot better than a lot of all-time greats. He was so dominant during his time and did just about everything that he could do for the era he played in, and for that, he made my list. At number 8, I've got Nikola Jokic. The guy that just dominantly won the championship and a finals MVP with the Denver Nuggets, and the guy that's either been a MVP candidate or the winner for the past 5 years. I really believe by the end of Jokic's career, we are going to be ranking him in the top 5 greatest centers to ever play, but I'm ranking this as if everybody retired today, and if Nikola Jokic retired today, I think he'd be at number 8. He is leaps and bounds ahead of every other center when it comes to playmaking and passing the ball, and just scoring wise, you could also make the argument for him being close to the top. Defensively is where you can knock him skill-wise, but he's never been an outright bad defender, and his dominance over the league for the past few years has been unlike anything we've seen in a while. Number 7 is David Robinson. Prime for prime, there's not many people I'd say were better than the Admiral. His physique and dominance scoring the ball and defending was something to see, and he has the accolades to back it up. He won 2 championships, an MVP, a Defensive Player of the Year award, and he made 10 All-Star teams. But he wasn't able to get over that hump and win a championship until Tim Duncan came around, which does lower his spot a little bit for me, considering he was never the best player on a championship team. But he was still a very important piece to those wins, and for everything he accomplished, I've got him at number 7. At number 6, I've got Moses Malone. Somebody who had one of the greatest careers ever, but does not get talked about nearly as much as he should. He was one of the greatest rebounders ever, and at one point averaging 17 boards a game. And he won a championship with the 76ers and won the finals MVP, but the craziest part being that he won 3 regular season MVPs in his career. He was the best player in basketball for multiple years, and he is easily the most underappreciated superstar of all time. He was a force down low and an amazing defender, and if the center position wasn't as stacked as it is, he could be a lot higher. Number 5 is Wilt Chamberlain. Probably the hottest take so far. A lot of people have Wilt top 3, and some would even argue he's the best, but looking at the careers of everybody and them as players, I've got 4 players I think are better than Wilt. Which I do not want to seem like a slight towards Wilt Chamberlain. He's one of the greatest NBA players ever, and he dominates a lot of records in NBA history that still stand today, like scoring 100 points in one game. As a player, there's not much to knock him for. He was a truly unstoppable scorer and one of the best to ever do it scoring wise, and defensively he was also near the top. But the one knock you've got to put on Wilt is his success in the playoffs. He won 2 championships in his career, which is very impressive, but he consistently, year in and year out, would have great stats in the regular season, and then his numbers would drop significantly in the playoffs, and he would get cooked by Bill Russell every year. And the fact that people still put Wilt Chamberlain over Bill Russell is crazy to me, considering he lost to him so many times, and Bill Russell simply outplayed him every year. You can call him a dominant post scorer, but you can't call him a player that dominated the NBA when he barely won 2 championships, and one of them was with the Lakers super team. And again, ranking 5th all time on a list with some of the greatest NBA players ever is not a slight towards him, like he's an all-time great. But I know a lot of people are going to be upset with this pick, so I had to explain myself. Number 4 is Hakeem Olajuwon. Hakeem Olajuwon was an amazing center during the 80s and 90s, and he's one of the only all-time great players from the 90s that got to win a championship without Jordan and the Bulls ruining it. The catch is that Jordan was retired at the time that Hakeem and the Rockets were winning, so there's always going to be that what if on if Hakeem and the Rockets would have been able to beat the Bulls, but no matter what, Hakeem had a legendary career, and skill-wise, he's one of the most talented centers ever. His footwork was amazing, and he was an incredibly great defender. He wasn't just good on the defensive side of the ball, he was one of the greatest ever. And he sits at the #1 spot for the most blocks in NBA history, which they didn't start keeping track of until the early 70s, so there's a chance that somebody like Bill Russell or Wilt Chamberlain would be higher, but regardless, the record still stands, and those 2 championship runs that he had with the Rockets in the mid-90s really cemented his legacy. He's also the only NBA player ever to rank top 14 in 4 different major categories, which are points, rebounds, blocks, and steals. He was so technical and skillful with every post move he made, and you could rank him even higher just going off of skill and ability, but everything into account, I've got him at number 4. Number 3 is Shaquille O'Neal, widely regarded as the most dominant player ever, and from these highlights on the screen right now, you can see why. When you think of bully ball, you think of Shaq. Nobody else was able to just move their opponents out of the way and slam the ball down like Shaq did. He was so physically imposing that there was just no stopping a prime Shaq from doing whatever he wanted on the court at any given time, and he accomplished a lot in his career as well. He won 4 championships in his career, 3 of them being in a row with the Lakers, and 1 with the Miami Heat. He won an MVP and almost became the first unanimous MVP ever, but he was 1 vote off. He made it to 15 All-Star games, 8 All-NBA teams, and 3 All-Defensive teams. His mix of size, strength, explosiveness is likely something we will never see again, and we had never seen anything like that before either. Number 2 is Bill Russell. The goal of being an NBA player is to win a championship. MVPs are cool, and having great stats are cool, but the thing that everybody wants to accomplish is becoming an NBA champion, and Bill Russell did that so many more times than anybody else in NBA history. 11 championships in one career is unheard of, and he won 5 MVPs to go along with that. As much as people say Wilt was better than Russell and that Wilt was the better player in the regular season, they forget to mention that Bill Russell actually had more regular season MVPs than Wilt Chamberlain. So he was better than Wilt in the postseason and the regular season basically every year. With how dominant of a career he had and the amount of things he accomplished, you could very well justify putting him as the greatest center ever and even in the GOAT conversation, but the one thing that holds him back is again the era he played in, which is unfortunate for him because he had such an amazing career and did everything possible to be the greatest while he was playing, and he can't control what era he was in. But when you compare his career to the next legend on this list, you gotta put Russell at the 2. Because at the #1 spot, it's Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. People debate LeBron versus Jordan all the time, and no matter what order they put those 2 in, every time they will put Kareem as the 3rd greatest. And while I think that's accurate, Kareem has a real argument for being in that top conversation. He was the NBA's all-time leading scorer for multiple decades and won 6 championships in his career. He also won 6 MVPs and had a long career and longevity that gets looked over a lot. He had one of the most unstoppable shots ever with this sky hook, and overall he was just great as a scorer, and Kareem's legacy is one that will not be touched for a while, and when it comes to ranking the greatest centers, there's not many people even close to Kareem. But that's it for my list for the top 10 greatest centers in NBA history. Let me know what you guys would do differently in the comments below. Thank you all for watching, and with that being said, I'm out of here, and I'll see you on the next one.